market for it. But the real reason is because it's the most quick connection between you and everyone else in your community, between you and the internet, between you and your friend across the country, across the globe. Me and Sid right now, we're in 12 hours apart, but we contact every day through our phones. So we need to make sure that we can create an application which allows for connection between users, between you and the internet, between you and your websites and your everything, really. So you want to motivate the idea of how do you approach this idea of connection and this idea of sort of an Internet of Things into an application. How do you go from idea onto a screen, from designing the buttons on your screen to how does the front end logic work, the back end logic work, how do you set up a server? All of these things we're going to try to cover as fast as we can and as completely as we can in the next 2 hours. Just very briefly, some skills you're going to need eventually, just some hard skills, languages you might want to use. Android, of course, for Android phones, we use Kotlin or Java. Swift is for iOS. React Native and Flutter are 2 cross-platform languages. We'll be focusing on Flutter today just because it's one of the easiest to integrate with the Firebase server, which we'll also be going over. Some of the software skills you need, something called Agile. It's a set of methodologies which focuses on test-driven development, and you want to focus on working code. So everything we're going to be working on today is going to be focusing on getting a piece of working code done. Your prompts you're going to be given at the end of the presentation, we're going to be focusing on getting working code done. Attempts are great, but if you don't have a rapid iteration cycle, it's hard to show anything for your work. And we want to make sure that you can put this on your resume. You can put this as an experience that you've had that's been beneficial to you by having some sort of product you can show for. So we're going to focus on working code primarily. With that version control, we use Git through GitHub's hosting server. It allows us to see what you're doing. It allows you to communicate with your team, create different branches for different features, all these sorts of things. We'll be primarily using Discord for text communication, and we'll be looking at your GitHub repos. Occasionally, if you need any help, we can come through and provide you any help you need. We'll be available basically all night, hopefully. There'll be someone on call. Lastly, testing and coverage. We won't go over this today, but some of the testing tools we use for your backend are Jest, for your front end, Espresso, and Travis CI is a continuous integration tool used for automating your tests, and Codacy is used for finding style issues and checking your coverage. Okay, I think that brings us to the big guy. What is Flutter? So Flutter is an open source UI software development kit created by Google, used to develop applications for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, Linux, the whole set. It's cross-platform, so you can put it on anything you want. It's very much uniform across how it's programmed for each one of these devices, so it allows you to get a lot more of your markets sort of tackled before you have to make a second app in another language. And so the Flutter SDK uses the Dart programming language. That's what really hosts all the backend and communicates with your server. Flutter is more of a UI kit. So the combination of these two makes a really powerful language that you guys can learn. So using the hybrid approach, Google has made this tool around 5 or 6 years ago. It's really simple to understand and to use. It's natively compiled on all applications into a single code base. So you don't have 2 repos, it's just all in one repo. So of course, in native app approach, in Apple, you have Objective-C or Swift as your programming languages. In Android, you have Kotlin or Java. With Flutter, you combine the 2 into one language, which makes the device-specific code automatically through the Dart SDK. Again, what is Flutter? It's the next step in app development. It's all about speed and performance, flexibility, a native look and feel, and less time to market. The big one is less time to market. So Flutter is a little bit harder to perhaps test than a document object model, which is where you drag and drop buttons onto a screen, which is something you can do with Android. But it allows you to get a much quicker product to your customers, and that's one of the focuses of why we chose to teach you Flutter today, right, as opposed to just Android or just Swift. Native look and feel, of course, you want to make sure that your users have a comfortable environment looking at your app. If you have like the iOS buttons on an Android app, it looks a little bit weird. So you want to make sure that you have cross-platform compatibility there. And of course, speed and performance. Flutter has one of the fastest testing iteration cycles, just by the way that it's constructed, compared to either Android or iOS. So if you're going to be testing your code Flutter is much faster and allows for hot reloading, which is something you'll learn as you test more for your applications. Great looking and fast widgets. So widgets are the building block of all Flutter apps. It's everything that you see here is made up of widgets, image widgets, text widgets, clickable widgets, all these sorts of things that can make very interactive applications. What makes Flutter unique? It compiles some native code in an ARM binary. It doesn't rely on any external widgets, and there's no bridge between what you code and what you see on the screen. And of course, it's built with Dart. That equation on the screen is something you're going to really appreciate as you go forward with the language. Now we're going to dive deep into Flutter. So here is the standard model of what a Android or iOS app is using the Flutter language. You can see the system layers. You have your materials. Cupertino is the set of Apple widgets. Material is a set of Android widgets, or rather UI components, and those get encompassed into widgets, which are made by Flutter. Then it is rendered with animations and paintings and gestures. And then you have your Objective-C at the bottom using C++. You have your Dart language, you have your Skia, and you have your actual text. This is sort of a very high-level look at the language. We'll get very in-depth into what the Flutter language actually entails for you as a programmer. And we'll also go over some high-level concepts to get the whole full stack hopefully covered. So here's something a bit more meaningful to you. You have your app and the platform. So you have your native code that you code in Flutter. You have your widgets and renderings, the UI that you make. You have your platform channels. How do you connect to your server? And then you have your services. So this is the stuff that's on your phone, but you don't see. Your location data, your audio, your camera, your Bluetooth sensors, whatever, as well as the screen. So you have your UI kit, and you have a small layer we call the front end, which is actually a pretty big layer of the app, but that resides on your device, which you use to do complicated logic on your application. There's also a backend, and we'll go briefly over that, but we're going to be focusing mostly on the front end for this web tutorial, for this app tutorial, because we're going to be using Firebase's own backend functions to interact with our front end. So it'll make it much simpler to make an application. So I want to go over one quote by Steve Jobs, and it's pretty cheesy before we get started. Design is not just what it looks like and feels like, it's how it works. So design is a key process in every single stage of your application. As you saw with our roast session, there's some portions of the application which are focused on functionality, not on design. And that really came out in the word maps that we saw on the screen. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on design at every stage of the design process, at every stage of the build process, every stage of the operations process, so that we can consistently provide a impactful experience to our customers. So again, what are widgets in Flutter? Everything consists of widgets. It's not limited to, it's limited to everything, including screens, text, buttons, material design, application bars, and some other more complex widgets that you'll learn about soon, hopefully. So the way that Flutter works, you have a widget tree, you have your main widget, which would be the main page of your app, which would have subsidiary child widgets, which you can see are grouped into stateless and stateful, and we'll go right over those really soon. This allows for your entire app to be made into something of a binary tree, or even an n-ary tree, if you will, of different UI components that each have a listener and trigger for activating your front end logic. So stateful versus stateless widgets. A stateless widget is one that is static after it is built. It can be built in many different build contexts. But a stateful widget, if you click on a button on the screen, it's going to reload the whole screen. It's a much more power-consuming UI component, but it also is a lot more interactive with the user. So there's a trade-off in stateless and stateful widgets that you'll see as you develop more with the Flutter language that we will hopefully help you tackle as we go forward. So again, stateless widgets we created by extending our class from the stateless widget class. This is some basic stateless widget which returns some subsidiary widgets. So in this one-on-one widgets, you can see text blocks, you can see images, you can see buttons, you can see entry forms. Almost anything you can think of is contained in these stateless widgets or stateful widgets. They're the big blocks that contain everything on a page. they're immutable once drawn. So what does this mean? It means that if I enter my name into or my email into a sign-in form and it's a stateless widget, you won't see my name because it's stateless. It won't show anything different than what loaded on the first time you loaded. So in that case, you would need a stateful widget. It's called once and only once. So that means that any change in variables, values, or events will not make it call again. To redraw it, you have to either go to another page and come back or reload the app entirely. On the other hand, stateful widgets, they're a bit more complicated to code, but you'll see that with Android Studio, you'll be able to auto format. This is all auto completed when you enter stateful. Excuse me. Again, these are great for text entry forms, for anything that is dynamic with user input. We'll go on to the fact that they're mutable and can be drawn multiple times within their lifetime. This means that if I enter my name into a user entry form, it'll stay there and it'll show on the screen and it won't disappear out of nowhere, unlike stateless widgets. So next is the element tree. So this is again what I was saying about the tree of all widgets. You have 3 general trees in Flutter. One is the widget tree, which has a configuration which rebuilds almost every time you move your finger. If you scroll, if you swipe, if you move to another page, it'll reconfigure the widget tree. These are some of the main widgets on the left side. You see containers and columns are 2 of the biggest widgets you'll use in your applications. Some of them are stateful, some of them are stateless, and they each correspond to a different node of the element tree. So the element tree contains these elements which refer to the widgets. You have stateless and stateful elements. You can see that the stateful element has a state object associated to it, and it's sort of abstracted away from you, but you'll understand this state object will allow for dynamic changes to the screen of the app as a user clicks on a button or scrolls or enters their name into an entry form. And then, of course, that all gets translated into the actual UI you see on the screen with the rendered tree. You have a rendered box from the column and container, and the stateful and stateless will just also create different boxes on your screen. So there's a little bit more high level when you get to the rendered tree, but once you're there, you can see what is on the screen, and you can work your way back to see where your widget tree might have made an error with what you see on your UI. Up next, layout. So let's go over some basic widgets you need to know for making simple applications. First ones are the layout category. You have list, tile, stepper, and divider. We just wanted to get a feel of what's possible with the Flutter language. So we won't go too much into any of these. Just gonna look for it, see what it looks like to you, see how you could use it potentially in an application you want to design. Obviously, list tile is for listing objects. You saw that in our managed. Actually, you might have seen it in our row session, but you'll see it eventually in the Dyne app. We have a lot of layouts. Steppers are used for breaks into a sequence of steps. So if you have for example, if you think of an intro page to an app, you might have a lot of information and slides you want to swipe through. That's great for steppers. Dividers divide the screen, obviously. Next, we have dialogs, alerts, and panels. So these are stuff like redundancy checks for user input. So if I say I want to delete my account, you want to say, are you sure you want to delete your account? That's what an alert dialog does. Simple dialog is similar, but a little bit less of a urgent prompt. Bottom sheet is what pops up out of the bottom of the screen. These are all things you can use as you go forward with app development. And then a bunch more things. Excuse me, I should go back to that. Basics, material design, Cupertino. Cupertino is the big one for iOS development. Every single thing in the Cupertino library exists outside of it. So if you have for example, this layout widget here, alert dialog, there's an equivalent Cupertino alert dialog, which is the equivalent form for iOS devices that has a specific look to it, a specific UI that matches the way that an iPhone looks. So it looks more like an Apple app rather than an Android app. Of course, your layout, we went over that. Text is just a text box. So if I'm going to display hello world on the screen, I use a text box. Images, inputs are great for login pages. You want to enter your email and password. That's an input. Animations and interaction models. These are all things that add life to your app. Styling is great for making your UI more approachable to the user. Same with painting and effects. And async, we'll get to how to do asynchronous programming inside of your app a little bit later on in the presentation. Rows and columns, these are a big one for positioning your row, which has another row inside of it. We have a big row, this red one. Oh, I can't click on the screen. We have a big row and then another row of 3 inside of it with the text icon and text. And then inside the first row, we have another column of 2 different texts. So you can see we can get very, very dense hierarchies of widgets to create complex UI components. Understanding context. So every widget has a context, as you might have seen in the previous slides. What is a context? It's the build state of the widget. It's, has it been clicked recently? Has it been double clicked? Has it been swiped on? How does it relate to the size of the screen that it's being displayed on? All these things are contained in the context, which each widget has. And that gets related to how it displays on the application. So it's a bit of a nuanced topic, but it's sort of like the this keyword in a lot of programming languages. That's what a context does for a widget. It tells you the state information of the actual widget itself. The inherited widget. So when you are doing generalization inside of your application, you need to be able to pass data down through a widget hierarchy. So an inherited widget allows you to pass the data from, say, my app to product details, as you can see here, through a direct tunnel. So either you can pass it through parameters, or you can use the inherited widget, which is a really nice shortcut to not need to pass 20 parameters for one widget 20 levels down. Similar to this is the provider package. This is a bit more of a complex solution to that problem, but it's also a lot faster. So provider is essentially a external to the widget tree, in that it can connect to any node of the widget tree and include any information through a set of listeners and triggers. So as you can see here, we have a listener on the single product, and that is attached with a trigger to my app, connecting all of the application together with any information from single product being passed to my app through the provider itself. In our application, we use providers almost every single page, from loading restaurants into our application to loading users to having the information of the current user. These are all accessed through providers in our application. We can go over that as we go through our demo application that we've made for you in a couple, maybe 20 minutes once we finish the slides. IDE support, as you can see here, there's a bunch of pictures. The big one is the one on the top left, Android Studio. That's going to be the place where you can make your application in Flutter. It has specific UI and code completion toolkits for that, as well as what we call the AVD manager. So the AVD manager is how you emulate onto a phone. If you have a Windows computer, you only be able to use Android, but if you have an iOS, you can do both iOS and Android emulators. Here you can see an Android phone being used. It's the Pixel 2. And so you'll go through AVD Manager inside of your Android Studio program, and that'll load the emulator, which you can use to debug and run your actual code. Authentication is a really brief topic we'll cover right now. Essentially, when you want to access data from a server, you need to be a valid user of the application. So what we do is we use a token to verify who you are. That goes to the server. If you have the same token as as your IP, essentially, it passes back another token to validate your access to the database that you have. And that allows you to see, say, if I want to see my friends list of friends, I need to be verified before I do that. Or even if I want to log into the app, I need to get a token. So the logging in process in itself is getting tokens. That's a little bit too high level though for now, and you'll definitely see more of it as we go forward in the next 24 some hours. And we'll jump right into asynchronous programming. So if you can imagine, when you submit a request to your server, it's not instantaneous. If I want to get my list of friends, but it's on a server that's hosted in the United States, for example, that's a big jump of time that has to be covered before I can get that data. So we use asynchronous programming to not have to block our program from running when you don't have the data that you want to get. So what we have in in Flutter is the future object. This is similar to a JavaScript promise in that you have an asynchronous object return in the future, as you can see by the name set. So here, what we have is a simple example where we want to get a future builder, which says if we're connected to the app, then load the app, otherwise load the loading screen. So this allows for asynchronous implementations of an otherwise unsolvable condition. Similarly, we have the future class by itself. This is for returning objects, not screens, whereas future builders for screens. The future class, it returns an asynchronous object. As you can see here, we want to get the user's order. So we wait on that with an async keyword, as you can see in the top right. And then we use await to get a future object. Await is the keyword that gives you a future object. So you can get a future string object, you can get a future bool object, future anything. It's essentially a wrapper for the synchronous object. Then you can see that the get user order will call, we'll wait for 4 seconds before calling large latte, and then you'll get the order back up to the create order message. And then of course to the main function. You can definitely use this for debugging as well, having a duration instead of an actual piece of server code to see if your code works with an asynchronous implementation. How does this relate to Dyne? So this is a very basic model we call the client server model of an application. How do you relate your front end to your back end? So on the left side, you can see all of our front end that we went over today. You have your views. So the views are essentially the pages of your screen. There's some simple views that we've listed here. In the front end, we use what we call a model view controller. So you have a representation, an abstract representation, which you call a model. That connects to the controllers. As you can see, we have a push notification controller and a request manager. These work with REST APIs to get the data from the server and to notify users of new meetups and new friends and new notifications. That gets all related to the views, the pages of the app, which displayed onto your UI. On the server side, we have the service and data layers. Service layers are your backend code. So we won't be going over too much backend code today. We'll be focusing on using Firebase for that. But for example, you could use Node.js or PHP or .NET to make your service layer and have RESTful services there or even microservices there. That connects to your data layer, which has all your databases, your APIs. So for us, we have a meetup database, a user database. We use Google Authentication, Google Maps, Google Calendar for a lot of our functionality. And then you can also see that the report message bus, that's great for notifying a lot of people at once. These are sort of topics that are really, really high level, but it's important to understand how your application looks to use these concepts to implement your idea. How do you put your idea into an actual diagram? There's a lot of courses behind that. We'll go over those courses as well. But for now, we're going to focus mostly on the Flutter language itself. But a little bit more on the Dyne app. This is one thing we call a sequence diagram. It tells you how we implement the logic inside our application. So for our login process, this is a very dumbed down version of it, but essentially, you have the app sign in and map display process here. You have the host user, which can be any user who is making a meetup. If they have an account, they can submit their credentials, and that goes to the Google sign-in. If they enter the right credentials, they have a success state. They can enter their interest into the application so they can get recommendations of users who are related to them. That's all through our clustering algorithms, the backend that we're implementing right now. That's all. I should be able to do pointer. How can I do a pointer? Sid, how do I do a pointer? It's kind of difficult to go through this. I guess it is. So you can see that we make a clustering algorithm here. So we get recommended users and restaurants. That gets sent back to both the current user as well as other users to update their recommended people. So now once a user is logged in, all the other users in the app know if they are similar to that new user in terms of their interests. So you can see right here that we've quantified and written down what exactly we want from our algorithm with respect to the user, the application, the backend, and the APIs. Similarly, if you're showing the map, you want to loop every 10 seconds. You want to load the map live with new user locations. You want to do that every 10 seconds. you get nearby recommended users, you get the location of your current user, display the recommended nearby users, and then you show that to the user here. And of course, the user can leave the map anytime they want. So that's like a very high level look at what our application does, and one of the features our application has. I'll just stop annotating now.
And this is all like very, like looks pretty different, like difficult, but we're gonna go over the actual code base. And like Google has been like more than generous to provide all the documentation for Flutter as well as Dart. And like pub.dev and like flutter.dev are the best resources you have for like next 24 hours, as well as other resources we'll be providing to you. We'll be like going over the actual code base, so we'll be covering all the basics, including like connecting the Firebase data, like backend, along with the actual like UI. So like a lot of people might not have a lot of experience with Flutter right now, but I just want to say like hackathons is the I believe hackathon is the best way to actually like go about learning, because the time is less and you have to like do a lot. But if you guys like communicate well with your teammates and like distribute tasks well, there are components of Flutter which don't require a lot of learning. And yeah, I believe like everyone can do like a great task. We're here to like help for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So just to reiterate, you want to look at the documentation more than listen to us, because it's a lot more comprehensive and a lot easier to just copy paste stuff into the documentation. One thing I've actually missed in the slides is Firebase. So we're trying to connect the whole thing together, and I forgot to mention the backend stuff we're going to be using. Firebase is our server. You should go to console.firebase.com to set up your account. That'll allow you to connect to your application, have your database hosted there, have all of your backend code is essentially abstracted away using Firebase, or you can have it be bare bones and just use the server itself. I won't go too much into it. There's a lot of great documentation that we can link you to, or you can just search up yourself for setting up a simple application, for setting up authentication. There's really, really simple tutorials that it's a waste of time to cover here. But we will go through the application right after I cover this last slide we have. The list of resources and tips. So the greatest UBC courses for creating software projects are the ones listed there. They helped me with app development. They helped me with seeing how to test code, how to keep a workspace clean, how to organize a team in terms of their version control as well as their communication. These sorts of concepts that are a bit more high level than just the language itself, but it also teaches you language. You know, I learned Node.js in these courses. I learned Android in a lot of different languages in these courses. So they're very valuable. But in terms of Flutter, no UBC course teaches Flutter. So for Flutter, we have 2 courses listed here. They taught myself and Sid the language to make the application, and we use it to teach our new hires as well. So they're very comprehensive. They don't cost like 20 bucks too. So they're really cheap, really comprehensive ways to learn the language. And just a general note on approaching these languages, you can try different languages. You can see which one is best. There's no one correct solution. That's like really cheesy to say, right? But there's a lot of benefits to other languages. For example, with Android, you can just drag your buttons onto a screen. In Flutter, you have to hard code how you want the UI to look integrated with your front-end logic. Whereas in Android, that's not the case. So there's a lot of trade-offs. In Android, it takes longer to test, but in Flutter, it's easier to test. Remember that we want to focus on the concepts of the language more than just the syntax itself. So that gets back to how do you look at what a provider is? How do you look at widget hierarchy? How do you pass data through your app in an efficient way? How do you prevent your app from reloading the page too many times to waste battery? How do you use the server efficiently to not draw up your costs to be consistently making pull requests with the server, making get and post requests? Lastly, the most important thing I think that you can do to gain more experience is more hackathons. All of our greatest achievements in this application have been from 24-hour code sprints that we've done without sleep, and we spent only all of our time doing only this. It's really the best place to learn, and I hope you guys have a fantastic hackathon experience today. We'll be going over the simple application right now before we hop into your prompts. So I think I'll let Sid take control of that, and we will walk you through it.
Just a reminder, guys, could you actually take a look at the team doc and add in your GitHub IDs, because that's where we'll share the code base with you, and like you can take a look at that along the way. We actually go over the actual project right now, so it'll be like really helpful. You all are like added to it beforehand.
We still need Govander, we still need Leah, Shubham, Arta, Vanessa, Abiral, Takdir, Onolunosun, Deepak, Everett, Ishra, still need Risa, Jamie, John, Justin, Ryan, Alex, Derek, Jordan, and that's all the app guys. If there's anyone else who's from another workshop, we still need your GitHub repos as well. Sorry, GitHub IDs as well.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now.
Go for it.
All right. Yeah. So this is the actual Dyne app. We're gonna go over some components of it, and we're gonna go over like today we're gonna go over the profile page. We're gonna go over the actual like friend meetups. We're gonna go over some ways to like actually organize your code well. We're also gonna go over the actual onboarding as well as the authentication. So I believe like we spent like a week or two just on like getting started on Firebase, and just to make it easier for you guys, we have included the whole code for connecting your app to Firebase, including authentication for Google as well as Apple, including in the repo. So you guys won't have to like actually invest a lot of time. It'll just be like a 30-minute setup time, and we'll guide you through it if you want. So yeah, I guess we'll be starting with the actual app then. Um, so the main page that like consists of
the emulator running too, so
oh yeah. Is that better?
yeah, looks good. Don't mind the loaf cafe, it's broken right now, but the rest of it should be fine.
All right. Cool. This like for people who haven't really like downloaded the app consists of like a explore page which has all the restaurants, cuisines. You can like filter through all of them. You have like a list of all your friends. There's a notification page that's using Firebase messaging, and that gives you all the updates that take place, like including people that add you as a friend, meetup requests, and yeah, another like confirming and all. So we have another manage meetup page. This is like the list widgets you saw earlier, and um, yeah, like literally we learned Flutter through like while we were building the app, and at any point, like whichever widget you want to learn, like you want to use, you can like look at Google's documentation. They have like sample videos for every single widget. The one that you feel is best for your project, you can go ahead with that. And this is manage meetups page. It like gives you all the details about your meetup that you created, and yeah. So as you can see, like um, yeah, this is scrollable page. We have like details about all the restaurant that we're meeting at, the member, and all of that. And today, as I said, we'll be going over the profile page, and that's one of the most basic pages, I guess. So we'll be starting with, I guess, the where you first start the app. So actual login and sign up page. Uh, okay, and I'm just gonna like log out right now. Yeah, so it's gonna be like a little laggy because I have Zoom as well as the app open. Okay, so this is the actual login page. Right now, you can only see sign in with Google because I'm using a Windows laptop, so that won't be available right now. Apple won't be available right now. So yeah, going over the actual starting page. So whenever you start a particular project, you'll start with Firebase, I guess, and that's where I start first. in the prompts, for people who have access to the repo already, we have in the code base that you guys have, we have created like a sample Firebase project already. This is the Dyne develop prompt. And I'd strongly like recommend you guys to create another Firebase project so that you guys are like not overriding the same project, because I guess like we have 9 app development teams and everyone's gotten the same prompt. So the GitHub um, code that the resources that you've received today, I guess I'll definitely recommend you guys to have it open right now. Just, I'm gonna go to the repository. So yeah, the Dyne app resources. It'll be better if I go over these first. So in the lab folder, we have all the models. The models folder has a basic class of the user, the restaurant, the cuisine, and the final categories. The user class has all the different fields that you have for a user. That includes the UID, the email, photo, name, bio, location, last time, phone, and referral UID. And you can like use all these resources. This is like a template repository, so you will be like cloning it and creating your own repositories. And furthermore, I'll go over the actual Firebase provider. So during the project, we saw that we had like a lot of methods, and just to like have it all organized in one place, we had this Firebase provider created. This is like a class that we've like extended in every single class, and we've like called on to all the members from this place, and it has all the code for authentication. So starting with the actual Google authentication, we have the sign in and sign out methods as well. You can like use the exact same method. You don't have to like change anything. The only thing that you guys will need to change, however, is after you actually clone it, you go into the Android folder, and inside the app, inside build Gradle, you will have to wait, just
App level builder.
yeah. So in the build Gradle, you'll have to like change this particular value. So I definitely recommend changing this so that you guys use your own project rather than this particular uh, Firebase backend. Another thing you guys will have to change is the Google to services JSON file, and that is created when you. So, for example, you create a particular project. You'll see that while you actually set up your Android project, you will have access to the Google JSON file in settings where you download it, and you will have to like replace it inside the app folder inside Android. So that's one of the like the initial steps you will have to go through. I guess like we can go over the actual code now. Yeah, so yeah. Parsa, do you want to take this?
You got it. You want to walk through the code, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I guess like we can just like walk through the code.
Sure. Yeah. So we can see here a couple of the main functions in most screens. We have did change dependencies. So whenever I change the context of one of the widgets, the dependency changes. If I enter my name into a text input form, the dependency changes. So we want to make sure that whenever we change a dependency, we change the profile data, and we make sure that we don't initialize the screen again if we don't want to. So here, set profile data would refer to the fact that I might want to edit my profile picture. And if I do, it should display that. Here we can see that we use the provider class that Sid was talking about. That's the one I was talking about in the presentation as well. I guess Amar has a question you could answer instead. So the profile data is set with the provider, which has access to every level of the widget hierarchy. So it goes straight from the home page of the app to this profile.dart page here. It gets and sets the current user, the one who's authenticated for the app. And then it sets the state of the state of the page. You see that it retrieves user details, and then we have this big thing called the build function. You want to scroll down to that, line 56. The build function is essentially where you contain all of the UI of your page. So safe area, scaffold, these are all things you'll start to learn to use. Safe area avoids the notch on the top of the phone. Scaffold is the big one for making a full phone screen sized widget, which has a app bar, which is that bar you see at the top of the screen, as well as a bunch of widgets like, you have your text that says profile, you have the log out button in the top right corner, that's the icon button there. And then you have the body of the actual page, and that's containing the body, where we check that the app has finished loading all of the user information before we give it a list view. That was one of the things we were talking about creating lists. And that's just like another form of having boxes inside boxes, right? So we have a bunch of boxes inside boxes here with images for Sid's face. We have Sid's name listed there. We have the number of meetups he has, the number of coupons and friends he has. These are all essentially putting a little bit of front-end logic into boxes of boxes. As we scroll down, we'll give you, I believe we're giving you this code base for reference, so you can definitely go through it and check it out. This is not exactly our Dyne. It's a very much dumbed down and much easier to comprehend version of it without any complex logic. It's just the main features that any application might have initially. So as you can see, we get the number of friends with the fetch stats function. So Sid has 23 friends, pretty good. And that gets put into the application above the friends label. As we scroll down, we see a couple of important widgets. One is that circle progress indicator at the top. That's what you use when you want to render a page. So when you have that spinning wheel on your screen when your page isn't loading, that's a circle progress indicator. Looking at the edit profile button. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's just circle progress. The edit profile button. So that is a clickable button. As you can see, it has a gesture detector. So that looks for a click, or here's on tap. So when you tap on it, it pushes you to another screen and passes in those 5 entries: photo URL, email, bio, name, and phone to that page through the push function. And then when you want to get out of it, it just pops out with that X button. Moving on.
I guess we could go over the actual fetch stats function.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's go through some server stuff. So you want to get the user's name, you want to get their information from the server. How do you do that, right? So we use the future because we're getting stuff from the server. It might not be synchronous. We use an async function with the await keyword to get a future list of document snapshots. Document snapshots are essentially just similar to a JSON string. We want a list of those. So we want to get all the statistics of our current user. So we look in our Firestore server and that Firestore keyword hosts the URL to our server. Then we want to look in so that's right there.
After we create like an instance, then we go over the,
So once you create a Firestore instance, and we'll help you through that once you get to it. We look in the users folder for the current user with the user ID UID. Look in the connection, look in the next collection called label, and we want to get everything in. So that's where we store, at least in our server, all the user information for a particular user, their bio, their name, their photo, all these things. So we get that from the server. As you can see in our server, we have that in what we call the Cloud Firestore. That is Firebase's own database, which is a bit easier to use than the real-time database. It's has a much nicer UI for seeing everything. So we can go into the users folder, go to Sid's user ID, as you can see right there, and that lists all of his information: his bio, his display name, email, the last time he used the app, his photo URL, and his unique user identification number.
So when we want to like fetch the number of friends, I went into users, then into my UID, and inside that I had all my friends, which is a collection. Right now it's empty, so I don't have any. but there'll probably be like a collection of friends over here. So it uses that collection using the label parameter, and then it gets a query snapshot, and that query snapshot is then returned with its data. And you can use query snapshot.docs to return any data from a particular field inside a collection.
At the high level, all we're making here on the right-hand side, it's essentially just folders containing folders, but on your server. So this isn't on our own device. This is completely decentralized. I think our server is actually in the middle of Oregon, so completely far away from us. But it's very fast, under 2 or 3 seconds to get the information. But we still need that asynchronous keyword to get to make sure that we don't crash the application with null values. What else do you want to go over?
Yeah, I guess like this was reading a particular value. We can go over writing it or updating it. So how you would do that is like, if you see in the edit profile page, we already have all the fields set up inside the user, right? What we do if you want to like update a particular value. So inside the edit profile page, the moment I click the tick mark, that sends off another method to Firebase, which creates a map of all these fields, and then that map is returned to the collection users, and it is updated by passing in the value. So this would like this particular method would cover actual updation of data. The same with, so all fetch methods are used to like read data from your Firebase collections. Uh, yeah, these are like all like pretty similar. The only difference is that we're collecting different data. Here we're collecting all the users. Here we're collecting all the user names. Similarly, all the user IDs and everything. So all these methods will be provided to you, and these will be like very helpful while you work on the actual prompts. And yeah, going over other methods, I guess. Yeah, actual creation of a particular uh, data collection. So when we first log in, I guess the page that you'll see that I showed you initially, the when you actually create an account, what happens? I guess that sends off a call to the add data to database method, where it takes the current user and then adds all these user fields. So in the Google authentication we've used, Google already provides you like a UID and email along with a token. So we use those particular fields, add in a empty string for the display name, add in the default photo, the phone and everything, and all that is set up. And then after we create a user object, we pass that user object to the collection and we set it. So for updating, we use update. For reading, we use I guess we use get, and for creating we use set. And the fourth one would be,
To understand this, it's called CRUD. I posted in the chat. That stands for create, remove, update, and delete. Those are the basic 4 functions which interact with the server. RESTful services are the base of this. REST APIs are essentially these. With REST APIs, you have post, put, delete, and get. I guess that would correspond to post, anyways, it corresponds to one of those. I guess like I can't put it to card exactly. I'm blanking, but you'll see that those 4 functions will be the basis on which you build all of your interactions with your server and with your backend. Furthermore, you can make it much more complicated and add filters and add different language-specific syntaxes to your CRUD requests in order to make more efficient and more complicated server requests. But for now, and especially for this next 24 hours, all you'll really need are those 4 requests: push, put, get, and delete. Post, put, get, and delete, which you'll see here as set and get and update and delete.
yeah, in order to like filter out any such details, for example, I'm checking out all the users in the users collection, and then I get that collection. and I form a query snapshot, and then I apply all my filters. So it'll be just like a simple for loop, I guess, and you'll be like creating a user UID list object, checking in like having in your checks, and after you filter out the data, you just return it. It's like pretty similar to any um, other language, like similar to Java or anything. So you have your filters right in place. The only thing you have to like worry about are the four like the update, delete, set, and get, I guess. Yeah. Uh, Furthermore, we'll also be giving you a friend user method. So as you can see, it like takes four parameters: the current user ID, the friend user ID, the image, and the name. And what it does is that it creates like an activity reference. So activity reference is what pertains to the actual notification page, and that gives you a list of all the updates. So for example, the moment I add anyone as a friend, the other person's user ID document, and inside that document, in their collection, there'll be a document created with the ID of my ID, and it'll set this particular data. So going over, like I can show you the example as well, but the moment I add anyone as a friend, this particular all the fields will be filled, and then a new object will be created in Firebase, which can further then be called like and updated. So uh, these are like basic checks in order to like if I want to check if the example like someone is already a friend, we'll again use the get method, and we'll check the users collection. Inside that, we'll check the current my ID, and inside that, I'll check friends, and I'll get it. Then I have my basic checks in to see if that particular query snapshot has my particular user ID, and if it is true, then it returns that. Otherwise, it returns false, which tells me that the person is not actually my friend. So yeah, the methods are pretty basic. I mean, this like definitely seems quite overwhelming, but if you like actually like spend an hour or two just like looking at the code and like comparing the syntaxes, it'll be like very relatable because everything is like there's a lot of repetition. It's just that we're calling out like different values, different collections, and different data. And going over the actual authentication method, you guys won't have to like change anything about these. You can use like sign in, sign out as it is, and get and set user, authenticate, delete user, and add to database. These will be the methods you don't have to change at all. And sign in with Apple um, is the actual code that is like available on the Flutter documentation, and it was copied as it is. Same is with the Google authentication. So yeah, everything will be like is provided to you, and this is the Google authentication, this is the Apple authentication, and you guys won't have to like change anything over here. This might be like a complex method, but this is used to like upload the images to the storage. So every single image that you actually upload on an app is first compressed and then uploaded to the Firebase storage. In our app, we've made use of the Cloud Firestore. We've made use of Firebase authentication. We've made use of Firebase functions, and we've made use of Firebase storage. But I guess for the prompts, you guys won't require Firebase functions, so I don't think we need to go over them right now. But yeah, if you would like to know more, just like learn, we're here for like the next 24 hours to like help you with anything. I guess yeah. First, what do you want to go over next?
I want to go through some questions as up till now, make sure we're still awake. I haven't heard anyone ask a question in at least 20 minutes, so I would love to hear people talk a little bit.
Yeah, like any questions you guys have for the hackathon, the prompts. I guess like
we can give you the prompts. We have another hour allocated for this workshop, and we can definitely go to more in-depth code. But we want to make sure that you guys want that before we go into that sort of stuff. So can you please get some feedback. And I'd love to ask you guys to turn on your video so we can see you as well. It's a little bit hard to talk to a black screen.
just like 16 people, we can like have a conversation about what type of problems you guys are having, like about anything.
You have to take your mics on too. What do you want to know? Maybe can you unpin yourself? Because your video is pinned, so I think you should unpin yourself.
Sorry, what?
Your video is pinned. You can't see anyone else, right?
Oh, wait. I think it's on your end though. You change it. Yeah. I'll like change the view from the right.
Let's stop the video. That doesn't work.
Thanks.
It's because you're recording, I think.
Yeah, I started recording.
Yeah. That's probably why.
So,
okay, anyone have any questions, or do you guys just want prompts? Please, I need to know, like, you guys want the prompts? Yes, no, put in the chat. You're listening. Session is going great.
You guys are doing phenomenally.
Thank you. I mean, maybe we should go over prizes. I don't know, get people to come back. So let's go over the actual prompts and go over prizes.
I'll just share screen. What do you want to do then?
Let's go prompts first, and then we'll do prizes.
Okay.
Prizes first. Most.
Just a moment. I'm just opening them up. Okay, I have them. All right. These are the actual prompts, and I guess we can just like go over the first approach you have. Like, we have given you the code base for all the resources you need for like working on the prompts. So that includes the profile page.
Document? Should, right?
Sorry, what?
It should have the document, right?
The document?
Like, do they have this document?
Yeah. So guys, like this document was sent to you last night, or like in the morning. For it's in the emails you guys received, and I guess we can go over each prompt in the app development, Flutter app development. So yeah. So prompt A, I guess.
Zoom in.
Okay, so create a feature for the Dyne app which tracks the waiting time and delivery time for the particular restaurants depending on the time of day. Use your creativity to figure out the best way that Dyne can represent this feature so that app works seamlessly and with all the features that currently exist. And you are allowed to use any open source APIs, web sources to gather information about the restaurants. Make sure you focus on UI as well and finding the most efficient way to display the details of each restaurant from the database provided to you. So for this prompt, I guess the resources that are provided to you include the restaurant class, the cuisines, the categories, as well as the restaurant JSON file. And I guess that along with the basic authentication and the file page and everything. So like, I guess this is kind of like a prompt that's on the harder side, but yeah, you guys have to like, also do you want to talk more about this though?
Yeah, I can go over this prompt. So we really want you to develop a high level idea and have some sort of minimum viable product working for it using our code stubs and our basic app that we're providing you. we're trying to create the best version of the Dyne app possible here. And hopefully with your help, we can achieve that. This is intended both to give you the experience of working for a real startup and working with the Flutter language to make a real app, as well as to give us, the tech team, some valuable feedback on what users, both technically minded and otherwise, think of our application and how they can improve it in their own way. So we can get a much more valuable breadth of input on what the app should become, because our first priority is creating an app which benefits our customer. Along those lines, we want to make sure to design this with care. And so what we're doing with the first one, obviously, is we're trying to track waiting time. You know, you can try to do web scraping to get the waiting time, where you can use Google Maps to find these sorts of pieces of info. There's a lot of great web scraping and great website parsing APIs out there that you can use. As Sid mentioned, we provide you with the restaurants JSON file. So maybe we can just go over that really quick to see what you have access to in terms of restaurants. You can just pull that file up, Sid, the restaurant JSON file.
Yeah, it's inside assets.
So this file, it's essentially one big JSON file of 300 restaurants. It's 5,000 lines long. Every single restaurant is completely finished for you. So as you can see, if you want to just stop on one, they each have an ID, which is a number. They have a name, for example, Aperture Coffee, an address, a city, a phone number, website, and the cuisine. The cuisine is a type we provide to you. It's all included in there. Veggie refers to whether it is vegetarian, GF for gluten-free, pickup if it has pickup, sit inside if you can sit inside, similar to sitting for the sitting patio. Does it have delivery? 0 for no, 1 for yes. The latitude and longitude, that's the location in terms of its geo point for displaying on the map. Its rating in terms of user ratings. Its affordability, that's an index from 0 to, I believe, 2. The image we associate with it when we want to display on the application, as well as the opening and closing times for every single day of the week for every single restaurant in our application. So this will really, really help you get a sense of what you want to work on and improve on and display in terms of restaurant on the application. You know, how do you want to best put this data forward? What can you add to this data set? Hopefully you can add waiting times that are dynamic onto this data set for prompt A. If you want to go back to those prompts, you go over prompt B next.
Yeah.
So, where is it? There it is. Okay. So we want to develop a restaurant onboarding process, and once you guys develop a restaurant onboarding process, what does that mean? Well, when we have a user log on to the app, they sign in, they add potentially they add interests, they write their bio and add their photo. We want you guys to make this same type of feature, but for a restaurant. So how would a restaurant best interact with the Dyne app? How would they want to advertise their coupons, their offers, their business to potential customers? Because our main market with this prompt is to say, how do we get more restaurants to enjoy and to fluently use the Dyne application? So we want to make a dashboard, and that can be in Flutter, hopefully, for restaurants to monitor and analyze their popularity. How many people have viewed their page? How many people have gone to meetups at that restaurant? How much money have they spent? That'd be a cool feature to have, you know? How many reviews do they have? And hopefully the restaurant can edit their profile so that it can be displayed on the application. You know, maybe they can add a new coupon, and that'll be displayed on our Explore page. Maybe they can update their menu, and that sends a notification to the users to, hey, we have a new cheeseburger on the menu, or whatever it may be. The goal is to try to give restaurants more control and access to the Dyne app through the dashboard, while at the same time having the database up to date for users on the app. This means you want to allow the user to have the full meetup creation, verification, restaurant ordering process all in the Dyne app. You don't want to have to go to another secondary app just to see the menu or to even to pay, right? So anything we can do to bring restaurants onto the application instead of users leaving to find the restaurants, that is a beneficial stride towards accomplishing this prompt.
Essentially,
of course,
like,
we want to use a Flutter language in our Firebase database. And of course, these restaurant JSON file here is your best friend in finding quick info on all the restaurants.
yes, essentially the most basic onboarding process would include like having the restaurant, adding the name, address, city, phone, website, cuisine, and that's when, and open times and all of that. And after that, you can go on to like choose your own like edits. For example, like what Parsa talked about, the different menu items. So for example, like we can have like a form setup inside Flutter, which makes it very easy for a restaurant to add in each menu item. You could do that, or like take the easy way of like just like uploading like a link to the particular PDF or something. So like this actually gives like the restaurant access to the app, and that way it'll make it easier for Dyne as well to onboard a particular restaurant by just like having the restaurant like choose what to add and what not to, and making it more complex. You could like take one adding coupons as well. For example, like offers, you could create like we have like given you cuisines classes and all. You're looking at those, you could create your own coupon class. You could create that particular collection inside Firebase and add that to the actual user of the particular restaurant. So like the possibilities are endless. Just like think what do you think like a restaurant would want to add when like joining a particular app and being added to our app. So yeah, I'll share it again.
Just to reiterate on what Sid said, the best thing you can definitely do for max points is to make a system which will get the most restaurants on the application. So right now we have 300 restaurants in our database. Can you make it so that we can get 700? That'd be great, right? So how can we make onboarding of not only existing restaurants with their menus, but new restaurants with information as well, fluent and consistent? And let's go on to prompt C.
Just like I just want to show the onboarding process for a particular user right now, so they can use that as a reference, because I can't really open that in the app right now. My user is already created.
Just see it in the application you can download.
Sorry, what?
You can just download the application. The onboarding.
Yeah, I guess you guys will like
a login process for a restaurant. Sign up and log in.
Okay, let's go on to the next prompt.
So prompt C is all about the pandemic. We want to ensure safe meetups. So right now on our app, we limit to 6 users per meetup as per the DSC regulation for the number who can go to a restaurant together. We want to find more features that allow users to stay safe during a meetup with individuals who they may not know or who they may know. If they want to go out and find new friends, they should be able to do that safely. So whether that means having a reminder on the screen to wear a mask, or to even locate the nearest sanitation station, or nearest hospital, or nearest place to get a COVID test onto the application, so that users have a much more fluent experience without the fear of the pandemic driving their app use. That would make prompt C a very valuable company. So we want you guys to make some feature that can allow users to feel safe while using that. This one's all about safety, using the Flutter language, of course, and our Firebase server. Prompt D, we want to increase our breadth. Right now we have restaurants in the greater Vancouver area. We want to expand the community to new users, both in the places we have restaurants and in the places we don't. So how can we develop a technical solution that Dyne can use to improve user experience and get more individual users in the app? This might be a radical UI change to the application. It might be a completely new feature you want to have. It's really open to you to do these creative as you want within the bounds of delivering an app-related solution with a clever UI. This is really, a unrestricted prompt, and you're free to take it if you like, as long as we can see the passion you have behind it, and it's not just for the sake of making your application. But
In a way,
definitely you
like
want
this
to focus.
prompt wants you to like develop anything that you want, and like just having like an open approach to our app, whatever feature that you think can help make the app more successful, and yeah, just like all of this.
This is really your place to shine with anything new. You know, anything you think that the Dyne app could use. Prompt E, this one is about adding interests. So when we're onboarding a user, we only know about them as their bio and their and their picture. But we want to know what's their favorite cuisine, what's their faculty, what's their age, what's their information, and we want all that to be inputted, you know, of course, securely so that it's not public. But then that's stored in the database so that we can provide a interest sorting and recommendation algorithm to the users. So all we want from you is to create that onboarding form, which allows users to enter the interests. And if you're able to implement a algorithm which can cluster users together based on similar interests, that's bonus points. Even if you can get a filter working, so if you and I are both in computer science, then we're matched together, that's a fantastic one too. There's definitely brownie points for this one because it's one of our passion projects as well as prompt B. But all of these have equal weight, so there's no real correct prompt to choose. We value all of them for different reasons, and they're all completely important to the success of our application. And hopefully they are really important in your journey to become app developers, both in Flutter and in whatever language you learn next. So I think we'll open it up for any questions you have on the prompts. Please unmute yourself if you have any questions. Otherwise, I think we've covered all of our bases. If you have any code questions, we'll be available, at least myself, until 11. Sid for a little bit longer because he's in a different time zone. And yeah, I think that's about it for the workshop. How'd you guys like it? Hopefully it wasn't too boring.
We wanted to like create it as interactive as possible. Like any questions you guys have, like honestly, you could like switch on your cameras and we could have a conversation right now because we have like a lot of time left for the workshop. But yeah, you can like get into the actual development part as well. So yeah.
I guess we can go over some of the other stuff that's going on tonight. So at 11 p.m., we have a game of Cards Against Humanity posted by Alicia. She'll be posting about that in the Discord channel. We'll have a drawing game posted by Henry tomorrow at 8 a.m. And Among Us will be played tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Henry and Kevin. That should all be in the email you received along with the schedule. I'm losing my voice at this point. Yeah, so please make sure you do two things. Put your GitHub IDs in the form we sent you. I can send that link again right now.
As you guys like add in your GitHub IDs, I'll make sure to like add them as soon as possible so that you guys can like get access to the GitHub repo.
In order to have communication with your teams, we really recommend you get Discord. There's voice channels, there's text channels. All of the exec team is there for your questions. Without it, it's really hard to communicate and to create a meaningful product. And we want you guys to have the best experience you can. So Discord is really the way to do that in this remote learning environment. So please, please, please get on Discord. Give us your GitHub ID so we can give you the most fluid app development hackathon that we can tonight.
Yeah, and the first place to like go when you join the Discord channel would be the help desk, the check-in desk, I believe. Yeah, and like the moment you actually react to the message, you guys will like receive access to all the different channels. And yeah, another note about the actual submissions. So we have the whole GitHub organization set up. Everyone's put into a particular team. If you signed up individually, you guys will have you guys have the access to the team forms as well, so you can contact your teammates. You'll also have the GitHub IDs because it's all there on the actual GitHub organization. And the repo we have provided you guys as a template repo. You guys will have to like clone it and create your own repository. when you guys are actually like submitting the projects, make sure that those repositories are public, and there will be a submission form sent to you guys soon. And as part of the actual submission, we will also be expecting like a small video of you guys just like explaining it. So if like after you guys are like done with your project, just like get on a Zoom call or something, and like if you guys just like share your screen and just like showcase your project while talking about it, like it can be like a minute long, 5 minute long. This should like give us a better idea, because it'll make the judging process quite easy for us, because we won't have a lot of time to go through like all of the projects. We have like 50 people participating, so that'll be like really helpful. And any other questions, like hit us up on Discord. And I guess that is it. Thank you guys for joining.
And we'll put you back to the main room, I guess.
Actually, so let's actually just move back to the main room.
Yeah.
And
So
then
everyone
let's discuss that.
Everyone feel free to leave the breakout room, and we'll regroup in the main room.
Oh yeah, anyways, yeah. So for example, I can add.
Dragon, your iPad's still on, buddy.
I'm sorry, what?
Your iPad is still on, and it's leaking noise from both devices. All right. Yeah, so I think I can, how do I break out? How do I break the breakout?
Wait, yeah, I'm just gonna.
I guess you guys can all just leave the room and we'll regroup in the main room.
The other workshops are still going on, so if you guys want to join the UI UX or the web dev workshops, you guys can do that.
Great idea.
Cool. Right. See you guys
So
later.
I think, yeah, so we're gonna be moving you back to the main session. Just join the main session. You guys can leave the breakout room manually and just join back to the main Zoom session.
Happy hacking.
So you don't want to make this as big as I did. We should make it smaller. But yeah, I wanted to show you like how to create like a basic card. And this black is like very dominant. So I'm going to change the opacity of this to like 50 maybe, or 40. So yeah, and definitely like this is like a bigger card, but you can go ahead and make it smaller, you know, just to fit. Yeah. So, okay, I guess that's it for visual hierarchy and how to play around with cards and blurs and shadow effects. You can also add like a shadow here in effects, drop down shadow. As Soresh mentioned, you can like hide the shadow or you can showcase it. So yeah, do you want to go ahead, Soresh, with the other app features?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think the next thing that we'll actually go over is how do you actually be creative, use some of the cards that you have, and almost create your own unique features within the app. So I'll just give you an example real quick. So if I'm to share this. So if I were to scroll and actually end up going to, for instance, the preferences page. So the first thing I would ask you guys is, how do you think that this was made? Because this is a simple slider, but what do you think did we use to kind of make this? Feel free to maybe say it out or just write in the comments.
Just like maybe the emojis, like those features, for example, like the actual like location button on the left.
All right. Yeah,
and then just
that's for sure. We use that.
The different elements maybe overlapping for like the line, like the black line, maybe like the actual circle will like then later on when you actually make it be like attached to make it longer just to cover up the gray. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? You perfectly nailed it, actually. That's exactly how it was made. So for instance, if I were to show you how to actually make one of these things, it's actually quite simple. For instance, if I were to make the slider, all I do is I'll go and first create a very small rectangle. just to show you how some of this is made. So let's say there's this rectangle, and then I were to change it to white. Oops. There we go. And then I were to first make a rectangle that is of one width. So for instance, I would just make a very thin rectangle here. Maybe just have.
Mohammed,
Lakshay, I have already placed you in web dev. You just have to click the breakout room so that you will be going back again.
I'm not getting any option yet.
Can you click on the
Sidharth, can you stop recording the
Oh, yeah.
And then if I want